52 Yada Yahowah. Azab, separation. 2. Zanah, whores. The oldest profession. As a result of Solomon's willingness to be religious to accommodate his collection of concubines and wives, the United Kingdom of Yisrael broke apart. Awash in the spirit of Baal, the Lord, the 10 northernmost tribes were ultimately ravaged by the Assyrians and enslaved again. All the while, the southern kingdom of Yahudah, Judea was on the cusp of calamity. Their rendezvous with mankind's most ruinous empires, Babylon, Greece, Imperial Rome, the Holy Roman Empire of the Roman Catholic Church, the Ottoman Muslims, and the residue of what the Romans left behind in Europe, would come to fruition in due time. And so, it was in this milieu of religion and self-reliance that the impending doom of God's people was just around the next bend. Fortunately, there was a prophet at the ready, so Yahweh was able to speak directly to his people. After Shamuel, Daud, Nathan, Shalamah, Obadiah, Yoel, Eliah, Elisha, Yana, and Amoz, Howsha stood up for God. Unfortunately, it was during a horrific period in the lives of God's people. What we are going to witness over the remainder of this volume will help us develop a greater appreciation for God's frustration with his people. This is because Howsha, our prophet throughout this journey, was asked to marry a prostitute so that he would have empathy for what Yahweh was experiencing with Yisra'el. 53 Howsha's revelation resides between a divorce and the heralding of reconciliation. It is a story of unrequited love, of children acting badly, and of a family and their painful time away from one another. It is a warning about trusting in worldly things, religious clerics, and politicians. This is also a prophetic tale from Berith to Azab and back to Berith again. It is the story of Yisrael and Yahudah told from God's perspective. While we are in the second chapter of the 8th volume of Yada Yahowah, the 23rd overall, which has been retranslated and rewritten, what follows is based upon my initial attempt to translate the Word of God. After discovering that English Bibles were inaccurate when trying to comprehend the message of 2 Shamuel 7, and while exposing and condemning Islam per Yahweh's request, a friend shared his interpretation of what Howsha had revealed. He asked me to comment on his analysis, which led to me rewriting what he had written. While I was ill-prepared some 22 years ago, I knew enough to recognize that his interpretations were based upon inaccurate renderings of the Hebrew text. And rather than simply telling him so, I tried my hand at translating the revelations Howsha had shared with us, hoping that we would learn something in the process. Therefore, while Azab, separation is the 23rd volume to be added to the bookshelf at yadayah.com, this is where it all began. Although, to be fair, since this is the 8th rewrite of what Howsha conveyed to his people, there may now be little resemblance to my original effort. Howsha, whose name is a contraction of Hu, he, referring to Yahweh, and Yasha, which means liberated, delivers, frees, keeps safe, and saves, has a lot to say in his opening salvo. The word, Dabar, the message, statement, and accounts, the communication, of Yahweh, as 54 directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his higher existence, came to exist, higher, was and would be, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher, with Howsha, Howsha, because he saves, a contraction of Hu, he and Yasha, delivers, liberates, frees, rescues, protects and saves, the son, Ben, male child, of Beri, the well, Beri, the spring or cistern, during the days, Bar Yaum, in the time, of Uzziah, mighty Yahweh. Uzziah, Yahweh is vocal and bold, Yautham, Yahweh perfects Yautham, Yahweh completes and purifies, Ahaz, grasp hold, Ahaz, seize the opportunity, and Yoikiah, heir of Yer, Yoikiah, Yahweh's inheritance, kings Melech, rulers, leaders and sovereigns of Yahweh, beloved of Yer, Yahweh, related to Yer, and during the days, Bar Yaumim, of Yarabam, contentious family, Yarabam. Complaining nation, the son, Ben, of Yowash, Yahweh's flame, Yahwash, Yahweh's fire, king of Yisrael, Melech Yisrael, ruler of those who strive and struggle with God. Howsha, he saves, Hosea 1:1. We think of God as light, and have witnessed him appearing as fire, and yet, he is available to us through his words. The Dabar of God is his most effective way of revealing himself to us. It is also the best way to teach and guide his people so that we come to know him. The Hebrew verb haya indicates that the word of Yahweh came to exist with Howsha. Coupled with Asher, it was for the benefit of the relationship and to show the proper way to get the most enjoyment out of life. Recognizing that much of this is ancient history, a list of the prophets and kings whose story is woven into this chapter has been provided for perspective. 55 kings of a united Yisrael. 1. Shaul, Saul, mid to early 11th century BC. 2. Daud, David, mid 11th to late 10th century BC. 3. Shalamah, Solomon, late to early 10th century BCE, kings of Yahudah. 6. Achaziah, Ahazah, mid-9th century BCE 8, Yoash, Josh, early 9th to late 8th century BCE 10, Uzziah, late 8th century BCE 11, Jotham, mid-8th century BCE 12, Ahaz, early 8th century BCE 13, Joikiah, Hezekiah, early 8th to late 7th century BCE, kings of Yisrael as the northern kingdom. 1. Jeroboam I, mid to early 10th century BCE 2, Nadab, early 10th century BCE 3, Baasha, early 10th century BCE 7, Ahab, late to mid-9th century BCE 8, Achaziah, Ahazah, mid-9th century BCE 10, Jehu, mid to early 9th century BCE, 56 prophets of Yahowah. Moses, mid-16th to early 15th century BCE. Deborah, early 13th to mid-12th century BCE. Samuel, mid-11th century BCE. David, early 11th to late 10th century BCE. Solomon, late to early 10th century BCE. Elijah, late to mid-9th century BCE. Kings, Jehoram, Omri, Ahab, and Ahaziah. Obadiah, mid-9th century BCE. Kings, Ahab, Ahaziah, and Joram. Joel, mid to early 9th century BCE. Kings, Josh and Jehoahaz. Elisha, mid to early 9th century BCE. King Joram. Amos, mid-8th century BCE. Kings, Jehoahaz, Jehoash, and Jeroboam II. Hosea, mid to early 8th century BCE. Kings, Jehoahaz, Jehoash, and Jeroboam II. Once upon a time, in a land before self-aggrandizing rabbis, Yahweh acknowledged Yahweh's name by incorporating it into their own with Uzziah Jotham, Almighty Yahweh perfects, and Ahaz Joikiah, grasp hold and become Yahweh's heir, explaining what it means to be Yahweh, beloved of Yah. These kings represented the good and bad of Yisrael and Yahweh. Uzziah was overly fixated on building an army. Feeling 57 invincible, he became self-reliant and was struck by leprosy for his pride. Yisrael would soon share in his shame, bearing an open wound as a result of its national arrogance. Pursuing the vignettes associated with this listing of kings, in 2 Chronicles 27, we learn that Jotham prospered because he ordered his ways before Yahweh. He was a good man who lived up to his name, Yahweh perfects. Ahaz, the 11th king of Yahweh, and the third in Howsha's list, ruled from 735 to 719 BCE. We are told in the 16th chapter of 2 Kings that he sacrificed his own son to Baal, as was the custom of Goyish religions. Then, in an effort to save his sorry soul from the Assyrian assault that had consumed the northern kingdom, Ahaz sought to appease the Assyrians by giving them the temple treasury. Joikiah, Hezekiah would briefly turn the tide on national religious decadence. After finding a copy of the Torah, and reading it, he re-established Yahweh's relationship with Yahweh. He would remove all vestiges of religion and then celebrate the Mikra with his people. Good thing, because, after destroying the northern kingdom in 720 BCE and enslaving the surviving Israelites, 19 years later King Sennacherib dispatched 185,000 Assyrians to finish the job and capture Yerushalayim. Yahweh, however, intervened, killing the warriors who were there to destroy his city. Hezekiah's story is relevant today because it is exemplary of what happens when we individually, and collectively move from Azab into Berith. Joikiah understood that he and his people could choose to be religious or enjoy a relationship with God, but they could not have both. And since Yahweh will have nothing to do with the religious, to receive his support and protection, 58 Yahweh, Judah would and will have to clean house to remove the toxins that have plagued them. Therefore, setting the proper example, Joikiah, Hezekiah was intolerant. Religious shrines and symbols were destroyed, including bronze serpents, golden calves, and mountaintop altars, along with the cults venerating them. Unfortunately, however, as is typical with kings, even the wealthy and powerful, once the threat was removed, Joikiah, Hezekiah reverted to the old ways. He assumed that the enemy of his enemy was his friend and formed a coalition with the Babylonians, Assyria's enemy. It was not unlike America allying itself with Stalin to weaken the Nazis, equipping Mao to fight the Japanese, or partnering with Saddam Hussein to torment the Iranians. Undaunted by the bankrupt strategy, the US would arm the Taliban, and Al-Qaeda to fight a proxy war against the Soviets. Even though that worked out poorly, America would play the same game again, but with far deadlier consequences, arming Ukrainians as their patsy against Russia. It did not work out any better for Yahweh. As a direct result of partnering with pagans, the cities of Ekron and Gibbethon were destroyed, and a century later, the Yahudim learned that the enemy of their enemy was not their friend. Yerushalayim and the temple were destroyed by the Babylonians, and most surviving Yahudim were hauled off into captivity in 598 BCE. Howsha's introductory sentence concludes by saying that these 4 men were the kings of Yahudah during the days of Yeroboam, the son of Yoash. That is a compelling story. Yoash's father was the youngest son of Achaziah, who was the king of Yahudah 100 years before Howsha conveyed Yahweh's message of divorce and reconciliation. Sadly, immediately after 59 Ahaziah's death, Josh's mother, Athaliah, murdered each of Yoash's siblings, her own children, so that she could claim the throne. However, the infant Josh was spared by Jehoshaphat, the wife of the Levite high priest, Yada knows Yahowah. After being hidden in the temple for 6 years, by the 7th year, Yoash was deemed sufficiently mature to become king, with Yada serving as his regent. Collectively, Yoash, Yada, and Sheba renewed Yahudah's relationship with Yahowah. In the process, they removed the Baal, Lord cult that had metastasized within Judah. Having taken out the garbage, Yoash and his saviors would go on to repair the house of God. Upon the chief priest's passing, Yahudah fell from Berith to Azab, lapsing once again into paganism. This prompted Yada's son, the prophet, Zechariah, to call his people back home, an act which cost him his life. Truth is seldom popular. Demonstrating a short memory and complete lack of gratitude, Yoash ordered the assassination of the son of the man who had saved him. I dare say, the leadership has been rotten for a very long time. Looking down upon the polluted cesspool that had become a familiar home to his people, Yahowah wanted to show them how he saw them. So, at the beginning, in the midst of this widespread pollution and profanity, to kill, with perverse corruptions common, from chol, to pollute and profane, to desecrate by making popular and common, Yahovah, our Eloah, God as directed in his Torah, teaching regarding his existence, and our Shalom, restoration, spoke, Dabar, communicated, through Howsha, he liberates and saves, Bar Howsha, with he delivers and sets free. 60 and, Yahowah, said, Amar, to Howsha, he liberates and saves, El Howsha, with he delivers and sets free, go and take, Holoklakak, walk about and select, for yourself, La Otter, a woman, Ishar, a bride, wife, and fiery female, who feigns love, money like a prostitute, Zanunim, who is a harlot and whore who profits by making men feel good. Impregnate her so that she conceives and bears children, Yelod, who are disloyal whores, pandering themselves around like harlots, Zanunim, who will play with anyone and slut themselves around for financial gain. This is because, those of the land, Ha-eres, are unfaithful prostitutes, Zanah, harlots committing despicable and loathsome acts for money, separated and away from, Min, disassociated from, Yahowah, written as directed by his Torah, teaching, as a result and in the end, Achar, after doing so and following this during the last days. Howsha, he delivers, Hosea 1:2. While to kill is typically rendered as in the beginning, it seems inappropriate to ignore its root and leave readers shortchanged. Based upon Chol, we discover that Yahowah is speaking to Howsha about the widespread pollution and pervasive corruption which are manifest in the popular religions of Yisra'el. Chol addresses that which is common and pervasive, thus profane. This is important because God seldom speaks out against individual sins, about the kinds of things on which the religious tend to fixate. Based upon his testimony, he is annoyed by problems that corrupt the people at large. And as it pertains to being wrong about God, the most pervasive counterproductive influence is religion, followed by politics and conspiracies. Each is capable of spreading virally through human contact, such that, in the resulting pandemic, the entire society is plagued. As has been the 61 case with Israel, most everyone ends up venerating vestiges of man's imagination and dying estranged from the covenant. And speaking of Yahowah, Howsha, like every prophet inspired to speak for God, consistently reveals his name. It is always the same name, and it is found throughout their testimony. This is among the easiest ways to differentiate between prophetic revelations and statements that are chol. Since Ishar is typically translated as wife in this statement, some clarification is in order. Ishar is the feminine variation of Ish, masculine individual. Ishar speaks of a woman or female individual of any age, whether single or married, widowed or divorced, a mother or someone with this potential. Ishar is written identically in the Hebrew text to Eshar, which conveys the feminine and maternal aspects of God's fiery light. Therefore, this prostitute could have been exceedingly hot or a real flamer. But that is not the point, since marriage is not defined in the Torah. There is no ceremony, there is no special designation, and there are no vows that distinguish a person as someone's husband or wife. The religious ceremony, vows, rings, veils, white dresses, and enduring commitments to exclusivity, never leaving one another, have grown out of pagan religious and political law. On the other side of this equation, divorce in the Torah is as simple and straightforward as writing a letter and explaining the reasons for wanting to separate. This is precisely what Yahowah is doing now through Howsha. Even the Torah's perspective on adultery isn't portrayed as it is in Western society. There is no prohibition against having many sexual partners or against premarital sex. Therefore, Yahowah's instruction regarding committing adultery on an ongoing basis isn't about 62 deviating from sexual monogamy but, instead, religious infidelity. And it is from this perspective that we can appreciate the intent of terms such as zanunim, harlots. While it is used to describe the oldest profession, beyond this, the tawdry notion of feigning affection for money is so common among the religious that Yahowah uses it to describe the fallen condition of his people. Rabbis have developed an affinity for getting lavishly paid, beyond that of high-priced call girls, for telling the religious that they are righteous. Their affection for the faithful is feigned as is their devotion to God. They have become experts at making the men most estranged from Yahowah feel as if they were the most godly. As the father of the covenant established with the children of Yisra'el, Yahowah has had to endure some very unsavory behavior, and for a long time. So now to encourage empathy among the most unsympathetic of people, God asked his prophet to go find a prostitute. That means that he was off to the nearest religious establishment to find a woman of ill repute, or simply someone as immoral as his people. This union with the religious would result in unethical and disloyal children, as had been the case with Yisra'el. Even though the moral compass of Jews was no more misaligned than that of Goyim, there was a difference. Since non-Israelites have recently become part of the covenant, they were not capable of being unfaithful. They could not break an agreement to which they were not a party. So, while they have chased after all manner of false gods, most Goyim simply don't know any better. There are so many ways to render a char in the previous statement that we are tasked with choosing the best fit in this context. Therefore, I think Yahowah is chastising his people for being religious right to the bitter 63 end, and thus up to the moment of his return. Most will never learn, making the Yom Kippurim reunion a fairly small, private affair. These things known, the primary purpose of this exercise is that God wanted Yisrael to witness what it was like to be married to a whore and to raise despicable children who besmirched and abandoned their father. Yahowah wanted Yahweh to realize what they had done to him, and what they would continue to do. He was going to divorce Yisrael, and it was important for them to appreciate why they had left him no alternative. So, he went, Holok, walked and traveled, and selected, Lakek he obtained, took, acquired, grasped hold of, receiving, Gomer, bring to an end, Gomer, to perform until the job is done, from Gamma, to cease and be no more, the daughter, Bath, of Diblaim, 2 cakes, Diblaim, to have your cake and eat it too, who conceived, Hara, and gave birth to a son for him, Yalod Lahu ben. Howsha 1-3, Yahowah, said, Amar, to him, Elhu, call, Kara, designate, recite, and announce, his name, Shemhu, his personal designation and reputation, Yisrael, I scatter God's seed, Yisrael, Jezreel, offspring and seed of God, a compound of Y, from any, meaning I or me, Zara, to sow, conceive, produce offspring, and El, God, thus, I, God, will sow. 4, KY, in a little while, Mount Od, I will reckon with, Wapakadeth, I will take into account and summon, the blood of, Dam, the deaths associated with, Yisrael, I, God, will sow, Yisrael, Jezreel, offspring and seed of God, a compound of Y, from any, meaning I or me, Zara, to sow, conceive, produce offspring, and El, God, thus. I, God, will sow, upon, Al, the house, Vaith, of Yahweh, I am he, Yahweh, I am his, Jehu, a compound of Y, from any, meaning I or me 64 and Hu, he, him, or his, so that, I can begin a temporary intermission in order to fulfill the promise associated with 7, Shabat, I will initiate a temporary leave, disappearing for a while, saying nothing until I fulfill the vow and honor the oath of the 7th day, Haifil perfect, with the kingdom, Mamlek youth, the dominion and authority, the reign and sovereignty, from Malak. King who reigns of the house of Yisrael, Beth Yisrael, the home of those who engage and endure with God. Howsha 1-4, and, it shall come to be, higher, it shall happen, even though it will not be this way forever, Kal perfect, during that time, Yam Hu, in this day, that I will break, Shabbat, I will end, crushing and destroying, thereby giving birth to a new expectation out of the rubble, kal perfect, the obstinacy and stubbornness, eth chith, the vehemently bowed and resistant nature, the burdensome presence and ill-treatment, from kasha, to become hardened and unreceptive, difficult, obstinate, and stubborn so as to be ill-treated as a result, of Yisra'el, individuals who struggle or endure with God, in the valley, bar emek, in the profoundly deep and mysterious depression which is difficult to comprehend, where the cunning immoral deviants plot to obscure understanding, Yisra'el, I sow the seeds of God, Yisrael, Jezreel, offspring and seed of God, and I scatter and sow God's seeds, a compound of Y, from any, meaning I or me, Zara. To sow, conceive, produce offspring, and L, God, thus, I, God, will sow. Howsha, he saves, Hosea 1:5. Gomer's name reveals that God wanted to bring an end to the obstinate and rebellious nature of his people. In particular, it was time for Israel to realize that it was all or nothing. They would either be in the covenant or estranged from God and on their own, left to their own devices. 65 This is underscored by the realization that they could not have Dabarym, 2 cakes, the round yeasted cakes common among the religions of the region, and matzah. The old adage, you cannot have your cake and eat it too, was born here. It would be religion or relationship, man or God, deception and death or truth and life, impoverishment or enrichment. The words which follow depict tragedy and hope, affirming the contrast apparent in Dabarym. Yes, Israel, God's offspring, the children of Yisrael, would be scattered, but in so doing, Yahowah was sowing the seeds that would eventually take root, bear fruit, and facilitate their fortuitous return. When the phrase, Mautod, a little while, was spoken by God, it suggested that their time apart would be relatively short from God's perspective, where a day can be compared to 1,000 years. In this case, Israel's time away from God would last just shy of 3 days, from circa 850 BCE to 2030 CE. Israel, Jezreel was, as God is stating, a bloody mess, necessitating a bold statement. There would be a pakad, accounting of not only what transpired there but, also, what preceded the killing spree. And there was the successful defense of Yisrael by a remarkable woman. In this place, the story of Daud and Shaul is told, as is the showdown between Eliah and Baal. Jezreel still shudders in the wake of an exceptionally evil king and queen, but, also, of Deborah fending off the Canaanites and, thus, of the salvation and destruction of Yisrael. Based on what we are about to learn about Jezreel, it would be unfair to render the valley's name as a pejorative. It is a compound of any, I, Zerah, sow and seed, and El, Almighty God. These words can be rendered, I, God, sow, or I scatter God's seed. Therein, seed can represent the seeds of understanding which, when properly sown and 66 attended to, will take root, grow, and become fruitful, and productive. Or Zerah can represent offspring and descendants, therefore, children. The only potentially negative rendering of any Zerah El would be, I scatter God's children. Recognizing that Yahowah can make lemonade from lemons, and perfect even the most imperfect of us, we may see Israel as a reclamation project. That is God's specialty. He saw his people for what they were, bloodied and broken in a pile of religious rubble. They were so far gone only a mother and father could love them, could see them not only for what they were but for what they could become. Yahowah is committed to the most important restoration project in human history, the reconciliation of the chosen people. And it would begin with an honest assessment of Yisrael's fallen condition. While Jezreel is encouraging linguistically, it is also an intriguing place. The valley stretches from the shores of the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. On the south side of the Jezreel Valley are places steeped in the lore of God's people, Mount Gilboa, Megiddo, and Mount Carmel. On the north, we find the town of Jezreel, the Canaanite city of Shimron, Endor, and Mount Tabor. Beyond the rich and troubled history of the Jezreel Valley, which we will contemplate, we will need to know some of the story of the house of Yahweh, I am He. It was in reference to what he represents that Yahowah Shabbat began a temporary intermission in order to fulfill the promise associated with 7. God Shabbat initiated a temporary leave of absence, disappearing for a while, saying nothing until fulfilling the vow to honor the oath of the 7th day. Yahowah would do so with Mamlekut Beit Yisrael, the kingdom and reign of the house of 67 Yisrael. So even in divorce, there would be no room for replacement theology. God will restore his relationship with his people. Recognizing that Yisrael had become addicted to the inebriating toxicity of religious cults, and that it was compromising their judgment and destroying their relationship, God would need to Shabbat, break their addiction, thereby Shabbat, giving birth to a new expectation that would emerge from the travail. Specifically, God saw his people's adherence to their religious devotion as kshith, obstinate and burdensome, their backs were bowed and they were vehemently resistant to change, as unreceptive and mule-headed as anyone has ever been. Even in the midst of this epoch, profoundly deep and mysterious depression where comprehension was deliberately curtailed by cunning deviants plotting to obscure this message, Yisra'el, God's seeds would nonetheless take root and grow, becoming fruitful and productive. Therefore, God is asking us to conduct an open and honest appraisal of what Yisrael had become, especially in conjunction with Yisrael and Yahweh. He wants us to see Jews as he sees them, not only for how horrible they have become but for how magnificent they will be after he restores them. He is revealing that he has a plan, that he has made a promise, and that his people will rise from the rubble after a long intermission, and in advance of the seventh day. The town of Israel, Jezreel, was located in the valley sharing the same name. Along the eastern flank of the lowlands was the west bank of the Jordan River, beginning south of Galilee. On the northeastern end of the valley is Mount Tabor, and to the south, Mount Gilboa. On the west, the valley extends into Megiddo, where we find Mount Carmel. 68 The Torah first speaks of this area in Dabarym 11, where Moses instructs the Israelites that, upon crossing the Jordan River, they should place the Torah's blessings on Mount Gerizim and the curses on Mount Ebal. They are located in the southeasternmost part of the plain where the Jordan and Jezreel valleys intersect. This is important because Howsha's revelation is predicated upon the triumph and tragedy of Yisrael as the nation either embraced or rejected the Torah's instructions in this regard. It is also the site of one of the most affirming archaeological finds pursuant to the Torah's authenticity. It is in Yisrael, Jezreel that we witness Deborah as a Shafot and Nabi, with her soaring oratory and exemplary character rallying Yisrael against the attacking Canaanites on Mount Tabor. She would summon Barak, asking him to gather an army from Naphtali and Zebulun to rendezvous at Tabor to defeat Sisera, commander of the Canaanites. Judges 4 and 5. The story of Gideon also takes place in the Yisrael epoch, at the foot of Mount Gilboa, providing a window into the character of an adolescent Yisrael. Judges 6-8. King Shaul, the people's improper choice to govern them, consulted with the witch of Endor in the valley. He was defeated on Mount Gilboa by the Philistines, where he committed suicide. 1 Samuel 29 1-6 and 31 1-13. The most revealing and, indeed, character-defining story to take place within the Yisrael epoch, Jezreel Valley is that of Ahab and Jezebel, Jezebel and the great debate between the 850 prophets of Baal, the Lord, and Asherah, goddess of fortuitous relationships against Yahowah is God. It is on Tabor that Israelite kings built altars to worship false gods. Hosea 5:1. If you care to believe Constantine's mommy, and you shouldn't, the misnomer 69 named Jesus was allegedly born and later transfigured there. The Maccabees, Romans, Muslims, Crusaders, Ottomans, and even Napoleon fought in the Jezreel Valley. Untended for centuries, it became barren, swampy, and malaria-infested. However, beginning with the Zionist activist, Yehoshua Hankin, circa 1890, Jews began purchasing as much of the valley, even at exorbitant prices, that the Turkish Muslims would sell. And even with the Turks exiling Hankin and stealing his land, Jews were relentless in their pursuit of the valley, which they repurchased, drained, and reforested, transforming Jezreel into one of the most fertile regions of Israel, serving as the nation's breadbasket. The Yisrael epoch, Jezreel Valley is called the way to the sea in Yeshaya, Isaiah 9:1, at the introduction to one of God's most revealing prophecies linking past to present, and into the future. It has long been where every significant travel, trade, and military route in ancient Israel intersected. Jezreel is also where, according to Yirmiah, the final battle of the time of Jacob's troubles will be fought, near Megiddo. As such, Israel is about highs and lows, beginnings and endings, and even a fresh start for those who turn back to where they began. The story of the Jezreel Valley is Israel's story. And since it serves as the starting point for Howsha's prophecy, the ensuing divorce and long intermission, let's review some of the epoch events that transpired in Israel, beginning with Moses in Dabarym 11. His words lead us nigh unto the gateway into this valley, and they coincide 70 with the time the Israelites entered the promised land. They are so rich in instruction, we are going to listen to Moses speak of what would occur, commencing at the beginning of his insightful speech. You should love, Ahab, Yahowah, Yahowah, your God, Elohim Otter, by diligently exploring and meticulously evaluating, Shema, his sustaining and observable requirements, Mishmarith Hu, his clearly communicated and inscribed prescriptions which cut us in by allocating a share, Shakahu, his method of exercising good judgment regarding the means to resolve disputes, Mishpat Hu, and the instructive conditions of his relationship which convey what he is offering and expects in return. Wa Mitzvah Hu, every day, Shel Ha Yamim. Dabarym 11-1. Come to realize and acknowledge, Wa Yada, this day, Ha Yam, that your descendants will not be knowledgeable, ky lo eth ben atam asher lo yada, because they will not have witnessed or experience, wa asher lo ra, the instructions and warnings, the attempts at educating and correcting, which have been offered, Moseh, by Yahowah, your God, Elohim atam, his magnificence, Gurdal hue, his resolute and unyielding influence, along with his empowering and uncompromising hand. Ethiod hu ha chazak, especially the outreach, ha nata, of his Zarawah, strong arm protecting the flock while sowing the seeds which will take root and grow, Zarawah hu, Dabarym 11:2, even, wa, his signs, examples, illustrations, and banners explaining how to consent to the agreement, oath hu, pertaining to the work he accomplished and things he prepared, wa ethmaseh hu, engaging in and acting upon for the benefit of the relationship, asher asar, within the midst, bar talk of the crucibles of political and religious oppression 71 Miraim, and before Pharaoh, the ruler, Melech, of the cauldrons of persecution and subjugation, Miraim, as well as to his entire country, while Arshel Eres hu, Dabarym 11:3, and what he did to the overall strength, wealth, influence, and troops, wa asher asar la kil Miraim, where he caused the water of the Red Sea to flow over them, asher chufeth maim yam su belhem, as they pursued after you to overwhelm and persecute you, panahem bar radaf hemachar atom, as Yahowah reduced their strength, wa abadhem Yahowah, even to this day, at ha yam hazeh, Dabarym 11:4, continuing to benefit the relationship, by what he did for you in the wilderness. Wa asher asar la atom bar ha midbar, right up until you came to this place, adbo atom at ha makam hazeh. Dabarym 11:5. For by contrast, ky, your eyes have seen, ein atom ha ra, all of the important work, eth shol Moseh ha gadal, of Yahowah, which he acted upon and engaged in to show the way to the benefits of the relationship, asher asar. Dabarym 11:7. And so, you should observe, closely examining and carefully considering, Shema, every one of the instructive conditions of the agreement, eth shol ha mitzvah, which, to get the most enjoyment out of life, asher, I have provided instructions and directions, anoki zawa, for you this day, otter ha yam. Because of them, Laman, you can be strengthened and empowered, renewed and restored, becoming especially steadfast and unrelenting, Chazak. So, go in and inherit, Bo Yarash, the land, eth ha eres, which, as a benefit of the relationship, Asher, you are crossing over, Otobar, by name 72 Shem to receive as an heir, La Yarash Hai. Dabarym 11:8. As a result, Laman, your days will be prolonged, Arak Yaumim, on the land and above the earth, Al-Ha Hadama, which, beneficially and as a result of this relationship, Asher, Yahowah, promised, Shaba to your fathers, La Abatam, to give it to them, La Nathan La Hem, and to their descendants, those who grow from the seeds which were sown, while Azerahem, a land, Eres, flowing, Zub, with milk and honey, Shalab Wadabash. Dabarym 11:9. For the country, Ky ha Eres, which you are entering, Asher Otabo Sham, to inherit, La Yarash, it is not like, Hilo Kar, the realm, Eres of the religious and political oppressors, Miraim, from which you have been withdrawn, Asher Yatsamin, because there, Sham Asher, you always sowed the seed yourselves, Zereth Zerah Otter, then you provided the water, Washaka, by foot, Bar Regal Otter, for something like a garden, Kargan, of vegetables, Ha Yarak. Dabarym 11:10. But the land, Waha Eres, which you are going to cross over, Asher Atamobar Sham, to inherit it, La Yarash, is a land, Eres of hills and valleys, Hawa Baika, drenched in water, Shatar Maim, with rain from the sky, La Matah Shamaim. Dabarym 11:11. And that is because it is a land, Eres Asher, Yahowah, your God, Elohim Otter, cares about and attends to, Durosh Ethai. Yahowah, your God's, Elohim Otter, sight, Ein, is always, Tamid, upon it, Bar-Hai, from the beginning of each year, Min Rishith Ha-Shana, and to the conclusion of time, Ad Ekareth Shana. Dabarym 11:12. By way of an interesting insight, for there to be consistent rain, there must be hills and valleys. When the 73 prevailing wind causes water-laden air to rise, the colder temperatures attained with altitude cause precipitation because cold air holds less moisture. Egypt was flat, with a desert to the west, and thus dry. In the direction of the Earth's rotation, the Mediterranean Sea serves as an evaporative source of water, which then falls over the foothills and into the valleys of the Promised Land. And if you will, YYV8C2, be especially observant, exploring and evaluating, Shema, my instructive conditions of the agreement regarding what is expected and offered, mitzvah any, which, to show the proper way, Asher, I have provided as instructions and directions for you today, Anoki Zawa eth atam ha-yaum, to approach by loving, La Ahab, Yahowah, your God, eth Yahowah Elohim atam, and by working with him, Wala bedhu, with all your heart and using your best judgment. Barshel libab atom, and with all your soul, your ability to be observant and responsive, wa barshel nipesh atom, Dabarym 11:13, then he will offer you rain for your land, wa Nathan matar eres atom, in the proper time, va ethu, early autumn rains, Yahweh, and spring rains Malkaush, so that you may gather in and harvest, Asaph, your grain, Doginota, along with your wine and your olive oil, wa Thyraushota wa Sheota. Dabarym 11:14. Choose to be observant, examining and evaluating, Shema, lest your judgment, libab atom, be gullible and deceived, naive and enticed, la atom pen patha, and you turn away and are forsaken, by serving, abad, other gods, Elohim Acre, making declarations on behalf of and worshipping them, wachor lahem. Dabarym 11:16. Then, Yahowah, animosity will be kindled, and his frustration will burn, cherah against you, bar atom, and he will restrain, Azab, 74 the atmosphere, ethar shamaim, so that there will be no rain, lo matar, and the earth will not be productive, wahar odama nathan ethyabu high. Then you will have hastened your demise and will be abruptly led away, bad mahira, from upon, min al, the good and beneficial land, this beautiful and pleasing realm, eres tob, which, as a benefit of the relationship, Asher, Yahowah, is offering to you, Nathan Laatam. Dabarym 11:17. Therefore, you should place, these words of mine, ethdabar any alay, upon your heart to influence your judgment, al-libab atom, and before your soul such that your consciousness is observant and responsive, al-nipesh atom. You should tie that which is associated with them, kashar ethem, as a sign that you agree, as an illustrative example of your consent, symbolically, oath, over, your hand, influencing what you can influence and achieve, yod atom. They can be, higher, as symbolic signs coming full circle, la totafoth, between your eyes to encourage understanding through thoughtful comparisons, bayan ein atom. Dabarym 11:18. You should teach them, lamed ethem, to your children, eth ben atom, speaking with them, la debar bar hem, while living in your home, bar yashab bar baith atom, when you are walking along the way, bar holokota bar haderik, even when you lie down and rest, bar shakabota, as well as when you rise, bar kormota. Dabarym 11:19. You should write them, katabhem, on the doorframe of your home, al-mezuzah baithota, and within, your gates, shata. Dabarym 11:20. 75 As a result, Laman, your days will be substantially enhanced and increased, Rabah Yamim Atom, along with the time, Yamim, of your descendants, Ben Atom, upon the earth, this realm of Adam, Al-Ha Adama, which, as a benefit and to show the way to get the greatest joy out of life, Asher, Yahowah, promised, Shabat to your fathers, La Abatam, giving it to them, La Nathan Lahem, in a manner consistent with the days, Ka Yaumim, of the spiritual realm of the heavens, Ha-Shamim, above and beyond the land, Al-Ha Eres. Dabarym 11:21. Because if, KYM, you closely examine and carefully consider, Shema, everything associated with the instructive conditions of the agreement, eth shel ha-mitzvah ha-joth, which I have provided as directions for you, Asher Anoki Zawa eth atom, to act upon and engage in, La Sahai, approaching in love with, La Ehabeth, Yahowah, your God, Yahowah Elohim atom, walking in all of his ways, La Holok bar shel derek hu, while clinging to him, closely associated with him, while La debak bar hu. Dabarym 11:22. Then, Yahowah, will drive out, Yarash, all of these people from different races, eth shel ha-gawim ha-alay, from your presence, min la pana atom. You will dispossess, Yarash, non-Israelites, Gawim, more numerous and powerful, Gadal atsum, than you, min atom. Dabarym 11:23. Every place, shel ha-makam, which the soles of your feet tread, Asher Darak Kaf Regal atom, it will be yours, Bar Hula atom higher. From the desert wilderness, Min Ha Midbar, to Lebanon, Waha Lebanon, from the river, the Euphrates River, Min Ha Nahar Parat, and all the way to the western sea, Wad Ha Yam Ha Akaran, will exist as, higher, your territory, Hul atom. Dabarym 11:24. 76 No one will be able to stand up, lo Yazar Ish, to your presence, Bar Pana Atom. Yahowah, your God, Yahowah Elohim Atom, will cause them to be in awe of you, Pochod Atom, and to respect you, Wamora Atom, as his gift, Nathan, over the presence of all, Alpana Shirl, the land, Ha Eres, which you walk upon, Asher Darak Bar Hai, consistent with what he has spoken to you, Kar Asher Dabar La Atom. Dabarym 11:25. Choose to see and perceive, Ra, that what I am offering, Anoki Nathan, in your presence, La Pana Atom, this day, Ha Yaum, the blessing and benefit or the curse of being slighted and vilified, Baraka Wa Klala. Dabarym 11:26. The blessing and benefit, Eth Ha Baraka, are associated with the relationship, Asher, if you listen, Shama, to the instructions regarding what is being offered and expected per the agreement, El Mitzvah, with Yahowah, Yahowah, your God, Elohim Atom, which I have offered as instructions to you, Asher Anoki Zawa Eth Atom, this day, Ha Yaum. Dabarym 11:27. The curse of being seen as unworthy and accused of invoking harm, Klala, will transpire if you do not listen, in Lo Shama, to the terms and conditions of the relationship, El Mitzvah, of Yahowah, Yahowah, your God, Elohim Atom, or if you turn away from or change, Wasomin, the way, Ha Derek, which, Asher, I am instructing you, Anoki Zawa Eth Atom, this day, Ha Yaum, and go after other gods which, La Holokachar Elohim Aka Asher, you do not know and cannot possibly understand, Lo Yada. Dabarym 11:28. And so it shall be, Wahaya, for certain when, Ky, Yahowah, Yahowah, your God, Elohim Atom, brings you, Voata, into the land, El Ha Eres, that, as a 77 benefit of the relationship, Asher, you will be entering, Otobosham, to inherit it, La Yarashai, then you should present, Wa Nathan, the blessing and benefit, Ha Baraka, upon Mount Gerizim, separated, Ha Gerizim, and the curse of being seen as unworthy and accused of invoking harm, Wa Eth Ha Klala, upon, Al, Mount Ebal, exposed, Al Ha Ebal. Dabarym, words, Deuteronomy 11:29. Moseh's speech was a treat for the ears and a feast for the eyes, brain food upon which to be nourished and grow. He told all who would listen exactly what Yahowah was offering and expected in return, as well as how we can capitalize on the benefits of the relationship, by listening to the words of our God. But for those who prefer faith to reality, religion to this relationship, imagined gods crafted in man's image to the one God who created humankind, they will suffer the consequence of denying Yahowah. And since Moses was clear and comprehensive, the realization that Israelites have spent most of the intervening 3,400 years enduring the curses, being seen as unworthy while accused by the prophets of invoking harm, why are Jews continuing to antagonize Yahowah by rebelling religiously and politically? One would have thought that, since they claim to be Torah observant, one Jew along the way might have noticed what Moses revealed, and assessed their history, perhaps even Bayan, understood the association between these things such that at least someone tried the approach Moses was enunciating. With these questions left unanswered, recognizing that these were the instructions, let's see what happened. Meanwhile, as Howsha, Yahowah saves, Howsha, built, establishing for the family name, Banah, an altar, my speech, to approach Yahowah, La Yahowah, the God of Yisra'el, Elohim Yisra'el, upon 78 Mount Ebal, exposed, Bar Ebal, Howsha, Yahowah liberates, Joshua 8:30, exactly as, Kar Asher, Moshe, Yahowah's co-worker, Ebed Yahowah, had instructed, Zawa, the children of Yisrael, Beni Yisrael, and consistent with, Wakar, what was written, Ha-Katab, within, Bar, the written scroll, Sefer, of the Torah, teaching and guidance, Torah, of Moshe, an altar, my speech, of complete stones, Eben Shalem, which no one has wielded, Asher lo Nuf, an iron tool upon them, Al-Hena Bartzel, and they lifted up, while upon it, Al-Hu, that which rises up, Ola, to approach Yahowah, La Yahowah. In addition, they prepared for consumption, Zebach, a friendship and fellowship offering to affirm the alliance, Shelem. Yahusha, Yahowah delivers, Joshua 8:31. And there he wrote, Katab Sham, among the stones, Ha-Eben, a copy, Eth Mishneh, of the Torah, directions and instructions of Moshe, which he had written, Asher Katab, before, La Pana, the children of Yisrael, Ben Yisrael. Yahusha, Yahowah saves, Joshua 8:32. All Yisrael, Shirl Yisrael, their elders, Zach and Hu, scribes, Shota, and their judges, Shaphat Hu, stood on opposite sides, Amod Minzeh of the ark, La Aroun, which was conspicuous beside, Nejd, the Lowy priests, Ha-Kohen Ha-Lowy, who lifted up and carried, Nasa, the ark of the covenant, Aran Barith, of Yahowah. Similarly, the foreigners who were traveling with them, Kah-ha-Jer, as well as the native-born, Kah-ha-Ezrak, assembled with half of them, Chatzihu, toward the foreground, El-Mobile, of Mount Gerizim, separated, Ha-Gerizim, and half of them, Wah-ha-Chatzihu, toward the foreground, El-Mobile, of Mount Ebal, exposed, Ha-Ebal, just as 79 Kah-Asher, Moshe, the co-worker of Yahowah, Ebed Yahowah, instructed, Zawah, to bless and for the benefit, La Barak, the family and people of Yisrael, Ethha and Yisrael. From the beginning, Bah-ha Rishon. Howsha, Yahowah keeps safe, Joshua 8:33. Afterward, accordingly, Wah-cha-ken, he recited, pronouncing, Kara, every one of the words, Shel Dabarym, of the Torah, teaching and guidance, Ha-Torah, the blessing and benefit, Barakah, and the curse of being seen as unworthy while being accused of invoking harm, Wah-ha-klala, in accordance with everything, Ka-shel, which is inscribed, Ha-katab, within, Bar, the written scroll, Sefer, of the Torah, directions and instructions, Torah. Howsha, Yahowah protects, Joshua 8:34. There did not exist, lo higher, a word, Dabar, out of the entirety, min shel, of what, Asher, Moses instructed, Zawah Moshe, that, Asher, Yahsha, did not read and recite, lo kara, conspicuously and publicly near, Nejd, the entire community, Shel Kahal, of Yisrael, including the women, Wah-ha-Ishim, and the children, Wah-ha-Tap, as well as the foreigners, Wah-ha-Jer, who traveled, Ha-holok, with them and in their midst, Bar-Karibhem. Howsha, Yahowah saves, Joshua 8:35. Since religious Jews pay homage to a lie, that of an oral Torah, Yahowah consistently underscored the realization that his Torah was a written document that Howsha read and recited. And since the rabbis have disparaged women by precluding them from Torah study, Yahowah affirmed that they, too, were there to listen and learn. We turn to these passages in a desire to better understand the events that transpired in and around the Jezreel Valley, and this particular presentation is appealing for three reasons. The first is that this reference is from Moses and found in the Torah, and thus early in the life of Yisrael. Second, it is in and of itself a portrait painted in black and white. It conveys the blessings that would abound if Israelites listened to Yahowah as well as the degrading consequences of ignoring God. Moses was exceedingly clear as to what would lead to one versus the other. It is a referendum on religion versus the relationship Yahowah intended. And third, not only was the altar that Howsha was instructed to build on Mount Ebal unearthed in the 1980s, but it was also recently announced that, when wet-sifting the material that was excavated from around the altar, the leading archaeologist serving the Associates for Biblical Research, Dr. Scott Stripling, discovered a small lead tablet. The altar dates to 1400 BCE, during Howsha's lifetime. Metallurgy demonstrates that the lead used to create the tablet came from a late Bronze Age mine located in Greece and is, therefore, from the same period. Further, the tablet was written using the oldest Paleo-Hebrew text, with the characters drawn as we presented them in Volume 1 of An Introduction to God. Even more remarkable, the inscription matches the explanation of what occurred. We not only find the words klala, curses, Baha Elohim, by the God, we find the oldest written text of Yahowah's name, spelled Yahweh. Moving on to another of the many significant events to play out within Jezreel, we are introduced to one of humanity's most courageous characters, a woman who was predominantly judgmental, especially insightful, remarkably intelligent, exceptionally well-informed, and 81 inspiring with her oratory. Her name was Deborah, which is based upon presenting the Dabar word from a feminine perspective with both the honey and sting of a Dabar, just as there are three Zarah, Moses, Daud, and a little Zarah sowing and nurturing their seeds, Yada, there are three marvelously important women in Yahowah's unfolding story. Sarah, who is so much better than Abraham, God would incorporate her name into Yisrael, Deborah, and Ruth. If I were to choose the next on that list, it would be Leah, the one who loved Jacob and gave us Yehuda. There is also a little-known prophetess who we could slot into the fourth position, maintaining symmetry with the boys. Her name is Judah, and she, like Yada, was instrumental in reintroducing and reaffirming the message of Yahowah and the Torah. Judah altered the fate of Yisrael by openly criticizing the people's deplorable religiosity, causing many to return to Yahowah as all traces of religion were removed from Yahweh and Yahweh. Her remarkable story is told in Melachim, 2 Kings 22 and Dabarym ha-Yamim, 2 Chronicles 34. And since we are discussing intriguing women in Yahowah's story, one of the most interesting is Chor. Although horribly misguided, sometimes delusional, and clearly vindictive, Chor is a far more complex and interesting character than Adam. So, recognizing that we can learn from the mistakes of others, these horribly flawed individuals were equally responsible for the subsequent fate of humanity. A giant among women, Deborah was in rare company for her time, even in Yisrael where women were valued. Her willingness to stand up when men were silenced and cowed is a tribute to the power of words and of what happens when someone is willing to take a stand against 82 political, religious, military, and economic oppression, as well as to societal apathy. As we have discovered, because it is Yahweh's propensity to remind his people, the history of Yisrael has been continually stained by religion, while only occasionally bathed in God's light. For example, Yahusha ben Nun, as Moseh's successor, had been brilliant in teaching, leading, and protecting the Israelites while partially ridding the land of the vermin who was spreading the plague of death. But when Yahusha passed away at age 110, after living one of the most exceptional lives in human history, there arose another generation who did not know or acknowledge Yahweh, nor the work he had done for Yisrael. Shafot 2:10, Then the children of Israel became religious, and thus evil, as they served the Baalim, lords. Shafot 2:11. They rejected and abandoned Yahweh, the God of their fathers, who had brought them out of the realm of political and religious oppression. And they pursued other gods, especially the gods of the people who were around them. They made declarations on their behalf and bowed down before them. And by having done so, they antagonized and provoked Yahweh, kindling his righteous indignation. Shafot 2:12. Again, they abandoned and rejected, spurning their relationship with Yahweh, and served Baal, the Lord, and Ashtaroth, the sex and war goddess who was perceived as the Queen of Heaven and Mother of God. Shafot 2:13. Therefore, Yahweh became intensely disappointed, exceedingly displeased, and fiercely indignant, kindling a burning animosity toward Yisrael. So, he gave them over to the hands of those who pillaged and plundered, who promptly pillaged 83 and plundered them. He surrendered possession of them by handing them over into the hands of those surrounding them who were averse and hostile to them. As a result, they could no longer prevail against or withstand the presence of their enemies. Shafot 2:14. Wherever they went, the hand of Yahweh was against their depraved and corrupt religious leaders, consistent with the message Yahweh had conveyed and just as Yahweh had promised them, and they were oppressed, confined, and horribly distressed. Shafot 2:15. And so, Yahweh raised up judges, those who would encourage informed and rational decision-making, and they would deliver them, liberating and saving them, from the influence and control of those who were pillaging and plundering them. Shafot 2:16. But even then, they did not listen to their Shafot, those teaching them to think rationally and to be judgmental because they prostituted themselves, feigning their affection like whores, continually chasing after other gods, even to the very end. They would speak for them and worship them, bowing before them while making professions of faith. Without any hesitation, they quickly rejected the way in which their fathers had walked who had listened to Yahweh's instructive conditions. They did not act or engage appropriately. Shafot 2:17. Indeed, whenever Yahweh raised up Shafot, decision-makers for them, Yahweh was with the Shafot, judges who encouraged good judgment. He saved them, always delivering the Shafot, those who were judgmental from the influence and control of those who opposed them. For indeed, Yahweh felt great empathy for them and was eager to console them as they were groaning in the presence of those who were 84 aggressively attacking them, pushing and shoving them while harassing them. Shafot 2:18. It came to be that whenever a Shafot, judge passed away, they reverted and became even more corrupt and perverted, irrational and immoral, to the point of being more useless and religious than their fathers, going after other gods, striving to serve them, speaking for them, and worshipping them. They would not drop any of their customs or practices and would not forego their obstinate and troublesome ways as they were unyielding and shameless. Shafot 2:19. Therefore, the resolute animosity, righteous indignation, and tremendous disappointment of Yahweh was kindled and burned against Yisrael. He said, because these people, acting like Goyim, have passed over and transgressed Berith any, my family-oriented covenant relationship which, to show them the correct way to get the greatest enjoyment out of life, I provided instructions to their fathers, but they have not listened to my voice. Shafot 2:20. Therefore, it stands to reason, I will no longer dispossess any of the Goyim, people of other ethnicities and cultures which Yahusha left behind from their presence. Shafot 2:21. In response, to expose the truth about them, and reveal whether Yisrael will come to observe, even look at and consider, walking along Yahweh's path, as their fathers did, or not. Shafot 2:22. And so Yahweh allowed the Goyim to remain by not immediately removing them. Shafot 2:23. When we read the Torah and prophets, from Moses and Yahusha and from Zechariah to Malachi, including Daud and Yeshaya in between, it is the same story 85 repeated over again. The history of the chosen people is one of religious defiance. The Israelites turned against Moses when he initially intervened to protect them. They had been free a matter of days before they returned to their religious ways, irritating their savior by replacing him with a golden calf. Worse, they tried to kill Moses and returned to Miriam after hearing the initial reports about the inhabitants of the land. Then there was the meltdown at Meribah. With Howsha leading them, they stumbled right out of the gate, plundering Jericho in defiance of God's instructions. Upon his passing, we read the foregoing assessment. The propensity of Jews to irritate God by being overtly religious is the overriding theme of the prophets. One has to be blind to miss it. So as this troubling introduction transcends from the second chapter of the Shafot, Judges into the third, we are introduced to Deborah, a ray of light in a dark world, doing the same thing over and over again, constantly repeating the same behavior, while Yazaph, Beni Yisrael, the offspring of those who strove against and were contentious with God, Beni Yisrael, engaged in and acted upon, La'asar, the gross religious immorality and ignorance of their shepherds, becoming as troublesome, miserable, and undesirable as their loud-mouthed compatriots, Hara, in the eyes and from the perspective, Ba'ain, of Yahowah, particularly after Ehud, all about love passed away. Wa Ehud Moth. Shafot, decide, Judges 4:1. And so, as a result, Yahowah, surrendered possession of them as a quid pro quo Kahem, into the hand, the influence and control, Yod, of Yabin, comprehends, Yabin, Melech Conon, king of the subdued in Canaan, Melech 86 Conon, who reigned, Asher Malak, in Chatzor, divisiveness, Chatzor. However, the commander, Sar, of his army, Zabahu, Sisera, flight of evil, Sisera, resided, Wahu Yashab, Barkarosheth Hargawim, among the scheming Gentiles, Barkarosheth Hargawim. Shafot, decide, Judges 4:2. The children of Yisrael, Beni Yisrael, cried out to Yahowah, summoning help, Tsaak el Yahowah, because he confined and oppressed, Ky Laketzeth, the children of Yisrael, Beni Yisrael, with 900 iron chariots, Thishemia Rekef Batzel Lahu, becoming exceedingly harsh, violent, and vicious, Chaska, for 20 years, Isrim Shanah. Shafot, decide, Judges 4:3. Then, Dabarah, word B, Dabarah, a woman, Isha, a female prophet, Nabiah, the wife of Lapharoth, the torch, Isha Lapharoth, was serving as a Shafot, judge, exercising good judgment, High Shafot, for Yisrael, Yisrael, at the time, Baha Eth Hahai. Shafot, decide, Judges 4:4. She sent out a summons, Shalak Kara, to Barak, lightning, La Barak, the son of Abinoam, my wonderful father, Ben Abinoam, from Kadesh Naphtali, unlike the twisted, Kadesh Naphtali. She said to him, Amar El Hu, hasn't Yahowah, the God of Yisrael, instructed you, Lozawa Yahowah Elohim Yisrael, to go, Holok, and assemble a force, Mashak, upon Mount Tabor, the mountain of a broken and confused world, Baha Tabor. Take 10,000 men with you, Lakak Imote Sereth Eliphish, from the sons, Min Beni, of Naphtali, to wrestle and twist, Naphtali, and from the 87 sons, Min Beni, of Zabulun, exalted, Zabulun. Shafot, decide, Judges 4:6. The question is, can I draw, Mashak, Sisera, flight of evil, Sisera, the commander, Sar, of Yabin's ear comprehends, Yabin, army, Zaba to you, El Otter, by the Kishon, lure of the river, El Nakal Kishon, along with his chariots and the commotion of his vast horde of uproarious troops, Reek Hu Hamon Hu, so as to place him, Nathan Hu, into your hand, by Yod Otter. Shafot, decide, Judges 4:7. Dabarah was a Shafot, thinker and decision-maker. She understood the situation and had a plan. She was gathering resources and would orchestrate them to achieve the desired results, the liberation of the children of Israel from being horrifically abused. To quote Yogi Berra, it's deja vu all over again. However, since you can observe a lot just by watching, and it ain't over till it's over, even though nobody goes there anymore because it is too crowded, let's continue to assess Dabarah's valiant response. We are alongside the Kishon River with Dabarah because it flows through the Jezreel Valley. It is one of many stories that help us appreciate the reasons Yahowah referred to this place in his divorce decree. A fellow doesn't earn the moniker lightning by being slow. Barak, lightning, Barak, said to her, Amar El Hai, if you go with me, Im Holokim Eni, then I will go, Holok. But if you do not go with me, Im Lo Holokim Eni, I will not go, Lo Holok. Shafot, decide, Judges 4:8. So she said, I will absolutely go with you, Holok Holokim Otter. 88. However, Aphiz, it is certain that the path you are pursuing will not lead to ky lo haya aha derek asher otter holok, your glorification, tifereth otter. This is because, ky, into the hands, bar yod, of a woman, Isha, Yahowah, will transfer possession, as a quid pro quo exchange, makar, of Sisera, flight of evil, Sisera. Then, Dabarym, word B, Dabarym, arose to take a stand, to accomplish what needed to be done, and went with, holokim, Barak, lightning, Barak, to Kadesh uniquely prepared, dedicated, and separated, Kadesh. Shafot, decide, Judges 4:9, as both sides prepared for battle. Dabarym, word B, Dabarym, said, Amar, to Barak, lightning, El Barak, rise, stand up, and affirm, that, indeed, this is the day, Yom, which, for the benefit of the relationship, Asher, Yahowah, will give, Nathan, Sisera, flight of evil, Sisera, into your hand, bar yod otter. Will not Yahowah, lo Yahowah, go out, Yatsa, before you, la pana otter. So Barak went down from, Yared Barak min, Mount, Tabor, to break and confuse, Tabor, along with the 10,000 men, Serath Eliphish, who were following behind him, Achahu. Shafot, decide, Judges 4:14. All the while, Yahowah, confused and confounded Sisera, causing him to panic and move in disarray, Hamam Sisera, along with all of his chariots, Shurl Harik, and his entire encampment, Shurl Machanahu, before Barak, La Pana Barak, so as to approach the mouth, La Pay, of the sword, Cherub. 89. And so, Sisera got down from his chariot, Yared Sisera min el Harik, and fled on foot, Bar Ragelhu. Shafot, decide, Judges 4:15. When you stand accused of abusing God's people, turning God into your judge, you may run, but you cannot hide. And in this case, the man of war and all of his weapons would be no match for a couple of moral women. With Dabarym having scared the bejesus out of Sisera, Yisra'el would astutely offer the panicked psychopath a warm glass of milk and a comfy blanket to calm his nerves, knowing that he would fall asleep. Then, Yisra'el, a wild goat, Yisra'el, the wife, Isha, of Sheba, charming company, Sheba, grasped hold of a tent peg, Lakek Eth ha-ohel, and she placed a hammer in her hand, Wasimeth ha-makibeth bar yod high. Moving quietly, she snuck up on him, Waboel hu bar ha-lat, and then, drove, Takar, the peg, Eth-ha-yathed, into his temple, Rakahu, until it entered the ground, Wazanich bar ha-eres, all while he was lying there, deep asleep, Huridom, having been exhausted, wife. And so he died, month. Shafot, decide, Judges 4:21. Run ragged by the women and confused by God, this cruel man, who thought it appropriate to torment Jews, was pegged as the loser in the end. But why, we must ask, was it so important that he die at the hands of a woman? It wasn't to teach Sisera a lesson. Sound asleep, he would never have known what happened to him. Therefore, Dabarym's prophecy and its fulfillment through Yisra'el, was for Yisrael. When we allow Yahowah to use us, ordinary implements, such as a hammer and tent peg, are more capable than a mighty nation, its military might and weapons. And with Dabarym, we see the result of 90 exercising good judgment, listening to Yahowah, projecting confidence, and wielding words wisely. These are God's most powerful tools, more piercing than bullets and more shattering than bombs. And they are rendered most effective when inspired by the feminine presence of the Ruach Kodesh, set-apart spirit. In 28 volumes over what will soon be 22 years, each filled with Yahowah's words and the thoughts his Dabarym inspire, we have engaged in the battle for Yisrael's soul. Inspired by the Spirit, we have been like Dabarym, with some words stinging and others sweet. Celebrating as we should, this victory of words and ordinary implements over mighty armies, along with the realization that this psychopath would no longer abuse anyone, here are some lines from Deborah's song. The villagers and soldiers, the entire population, Paran, of Yisrael, Bar Yisrael, refused to do anything because they had given up, Hodol. They did nothing, unwilling to even serve as a witness, until, Hodol Dabarym, rose up, took a stand, and became confrontational, Shah Kum Dabarym. So, I stood up as an affirming and restorative influence, Shah Kum, as the mother of Yisrael, Bar Yisrael. Shafot, decide, Judges 5:7. Once previously unknown and recurring, Chadash, gods, Elohim, were chosen and considered, becoming preferred, Basha, then, as, being besieged by adversaries and war, Lechem, was in the offing and at the door, Shah. Would there be seen, Ra, a defensive shield or attacking spear, Marganim wa Romach, with even 40,000, Bar Araba Elif, Bar Yisrael, among those who engage and endure with God, Bar Yisrael. Shafot, decide, Judges 5:8. 91 My heart goes out, Le Beni, to the Israelites, Yisrael, who are cut into the relationship, La Chakik, and who willingly offered themselves, Nadob, among the people, Baha'am. Commend, Barak, Yahowah, Yahowah. Shafot, decide, Judges 5:9. Be especially alert, Ur, Dabarym, sweet words which sting, Dabarym. Be alert and rise up, Ur, and speak out, conveying the word, Dabar, in song, Shur. Rise up and take a stand, Kum, Barak, lightning, Barak, and capture the captives, Washibar Shabata, son of Abinom, a delightful father, Ben Abinom. Shafot, decide, Judges 5:12. But alas, with the lyrics of Dabarym's song still sweet in the air, the children of Yisrael, Wa Beni Yisrael, engaged in and acted upon, Asar, that which was evil, immoral, counterproductive, and wrong, contemptible and depraved, objectionable and disagreeable, Hara, in the sight of Yahowah, Bar and Yahowah. And so Yahowah, Wa Yahowah, gave them over into the influence and control, Nathan Hem Bar Yod, for 7 years, Sheba Shinar. Shafot, decide, Judges 6:1. The victory Dabarym inspired within the Jezreel Valley should have lasted longer than it would take to sing her song, but these were exceedingly religious people who had no interest in Yahowah, evidence, or reason. They would rather die as slaves estranged from God than listen to anything he had to say. There was no benefit in talking to them. Yahowah had tried, as had Moseh, Howsha, Caleb, and now Dabarym. There was no way to garner their attention, for neither triumph nor tragedy had prevailed. From that day to this one, Jews would rather be religious than engage in 92a relationship with God, and that is why they left the Almighty with only one viable option, divorce. As deplorable as these insights into Israel's history have been, the most reprehensible story is the one we will consider next. King Ahab built his royal residence in Jezreel, and as such, it served as the capital of the northern kingdom. Therein lived the paradigm of evil, the worst king and queen God's people would ever endure, Ahab and Jezebel. Following the disastrous reigns of Jeroboam, Nadab, and Baasha, Israel was polluted with religiosity. As corrupted by egocentric politics as could be imagined, God's wayward people fell from bad to worse, opening the gates of hell. And this is not my opinion but, instead, God's assessment as presented in 1 Kings 16. During this religious turmoil and political intrigue, Baasha killed Nadab. Then Zimri, a chariot commander, conspired to kill Baasha. After also murdering Baasha's sons, the Israelites turned on Zimri, giving his army and kingship over to Omri. Yisrael was setting the model Rome would follow. Distraught over the Philistine victory at Tirzat, Zimri burned the Jezreelian palace to the ground with himself inside. And with Israel fractured, Omri followed in his predecessor's evil religious ways, causing the people to worship all manner of false gods. It was in this cesspool that, upon Omri's death, Ahab, the reprobate's son, became king. As he had with the litany of men who preceded Ahab, God announced Achab's reign with, "And Achab did that which is evil in the sight of Yahowah, worse than 93 all who were before him." 1 Kings 16:30, that's hard to imagine. Yisrael continued to be an exceptionally religious place. And it came to be, as if it was a trivial thing to him, to walk in the offensive religiosity of Jeroboam, the son of Nebat, such that he took Jezebel, worships the Lord, Jezebel, alas, the Lord's country exalts and worships Baal, to be his woman and wife, the daughter of Ethbaal, with the Lord Baal, king of Zidoni, the hunters. And they walked with and acted alongside, engaging on behalf of Baal, the Lord. They bowed down, prostrating themselves in worship to him. 1 Kings 16:31. He erected an altar to Baal, the Lord in Beth Baal, the house of the Lord, which he built in Shomaran, Samaria. 1 Kings 16:32. Then Achab, father of the brethren, engaged with Asherah, the Canaanite goddess of fortuitous relationships. Achab, father of the brethren, did more to antagonize, anger, and provoke as well as grieve and trouble Yahowah, Almighty God of Israel, than all of the kings of Israel that came before him. 1 Kings 16:33. As a result, Yahowah's God spoke out against the corrupt religious leadership of Israel. With his words, he brought a drought upon the land. The waters of Meribah would run dry. All the while, Queen Jezebel, worships the Lord, was doing what the religious do best, silencing those who speak for Yahowah as a service to Satan. So, following the queen's murderous spree, there was a showdown at the western end of the Jezreel Valley near Mount Carmel. The 94 ensuing episode is the most entertaining and among the most revealing throughout the prophets. The great debate between Elijah, and the 850 prophets of the Lord, Baal and the Mother of God, Asherah is presented in Melachim, 1 Kings 18. It reveals that Yahweh's prophet was fully aware of the claims the Canaanites had made in favor of their gods. The Lord, Baal, as a storm god, was shown to be impotent by when he couldn't so much as ignite a fire beneath an altar. And Asherah, as the goddess of fortuitous relationships, was shown otherwise when the fortunes of her prophets took a turn for the worse and they were killed. After Yahweh kindled the fire, and sought to embarrass the prince of the air further, it was Yahweh who caused it to rain, extinguishing the fire that Baal was unable to snuff out. As the debate proceeds, we witness the oldest political trick in the book. Politicians project their flaws and vulnerabilities upon their opponents in the hope of confusing constituents and deflecting criticism away from themselves, all while muddying the waters and slandering their rivals. And, it came about, when, Acab, woeful father and father of the brethren, a compound of Ach, woe or brother and Ab, father, king of Yisrael and husband of Jezebel, saw, Eliach, Yahweh's God, that, Acab, woeful father of the brethren, Acab, said to him, Amar Elihu, is this you, you troubler, Akar, the source of hardship and anguish who distresses and oppresses, excommunicating the people, of Yisra'el, individuals who either strive or struggle with God. 1 Melachim 18:17, and, he answered, Amar, it is not I who has troubled, lo Akareth, I am not the source of hardship 95 or anguish who distresses and oppresses, excommunicating the people of Yisrael, but you, Imota, and your father's household, Wabathabota, neglecting, rejecting, and abandoning, Azabota, the instructive conditions pursuant to the relationship with, Mitzvah, Yahowah. You have followed after, Waholakachar, the lords, Baalim, the ones who control and possess in the name and title of Satan, the god of Babylon and Canaan. 1 Melachim 18:18. So now, send for, Shalach, assembling together, Kabash, unto me, Eleni, all, Shurl, Yisrael, 2, Carmel, the mount of the garden, Carmel, along with, the 450, Abamia Chamesh, prophets, Nabi, those claiming to be messengers who can predict the future, of Baal, the Lord, Baal, the master and owner who possesses and controls, the name and title of Satan and the god of Canaan and Babylon, and the 400, Abamia, prophets, Nabi, of the Asherah. Beneficial relationships, Asherah, the queen of heaven and mother of God in the Babylonian and Canaanite religions, the basis of Easter, a pagan goddess associated with Venus, from Asher, to benefit by blessing, who eat, a cow, at Jezebel's, worships the Lord, Jezebel's, Jezebel, the beast of Baal dwells with me because the controlling Lord is exalted, from alas, a howling beast, Sibal, is honored and exalted while dwelling. And Baal, the Lord, Tabal, Shulkan. Melachim, rulers, 1 Kings 18:19. These relative numbers are actually far more favorable than Yahweh is accustomed to when it comes to differentiating himself from false gods. Today, it is more like 1,000,000 to 1, with the religious overwhelmingly outnumbering Yahweh's witnesses. But then, again, the prophets were only part of this dire picture. Corrupted by their leaders, the Israelites had become incurably 96 religious, with the preponderance of the people favoring Baal, the Lord and his cohort, Asherah, the goddess of beneficial relationships, to Yahweh. The question Elia poses and the answer he provides at the conclusion of the following statement should be plastered on the door of every home and church the world over. For this alone, we have been rewarded for having delved into the great showdown between the Lord and God. And, Acab reached out, Shalach, to all of the children of Yisrael, Bar-Shul ben Yisrael, and assembled, Kabash, the prophets, Nabi, on Carmel, the mount of the garden, Carmel. 1 Melachim 18:20. Then, Eliach, approached and presented himself, Negash, to all of the people, Shul. He said, Ma, for how much longer, Admatei, will you waver, vacillate, and fail to engage, utter Pesach, will you continue to pass by the issue of Passover, becoming unsustainable by failing to confront it, bouncing between such things, incapacitated and unable to commit, over, the two, Shanaim, opposing views, Siphim, different perspectives, variant thoughts, contradictory conclusions, conflicting opinions, and irreconcilable divisions. If, Yahweh is God, Almighty, Ha Elohim, the God, choose to walk after him, Holocachahu. But if it is Wa'im, the Lord, Ha-Baal, the master who controls and possesses, make the choice to follow after him, Holocachahu. However, Wa, the people, Ha'am, did not respond or reply to him, Lo Ana'ethu, with a word, Dabar, with any statement. Melikim, rulers, 1 Kings 18:21. Turning a deaf ear to God cannot be resolved. You can't fix stupid. Even when in the presence of one of God's 97 most articulate and brilliant prophets, everyone was dumbfounded. Not a single Jew had the courage or character to stand up for what is right. And that is Satan's greatest victory, the reason he is the author and advocate of religion. Faith intoxicates the mind and corrupts the conscience, often irreversibly. For those not similarly lost, it is the most life-altering proposition any of us will ever encounter. With the referendum between God and the Lord, Yahowah or Satan, it is essentially unfathomable that most people cannot or will not distinguish between them. For most, the Lord is their God. They unwittingly worship Satan and irrationally view Yahowah as their adversary. In that crowd on that day, there wasn't a single person who could correctly distinguish between the Lord and God, and it remains true throughout Israel today. The most incredulous part of this lingering conundrum is how much more rational and rewarding one option is over the other. Yahowah has proven through prophecy that he is God and has demonstrated that he can be trusted. By contrast, based upon the contradictory and irrational rants found in the Talmud, New Testament, and Quran, the Lord has demonstrated that he isn't God and that he cannot be trusted. Yahowah is offering to perfect our souls, make us immortal, adopt us into his family, raise us as his children, enrich our lives, enlighten our minds, and empower our souls, while liberating us to explore the universe. Satan would deny all of that, beguiling the religious into being controlled by his prophets. Yahowah has Moses, Daud and Eliah speaking for him, while Satan deploys the likes of Paul, Akiba, Maimonides, and Muhammad. This referendum is the Torah, Nabi, 1 Mizmor versus the New Testament, 98 Talmud, and Quran. It is brilliant versus stupid, right versus wrong, life versus death, and the truth versus lies. All God asks of us is to stop vacillating between these two contradictory and irreconcilable options. If the Lord is your God, if you address your deity as Jesus Christ, Hashem, Adonai, or Allah, then, just as you do not know Yahowah, you are unknown to God. Then, Eliach said, Amar, to the people, El-Ha-Am, I am the only remaining Eni Yathar, prophet of, Nabi, Yahowah. I am the only one, La Bad Eni. But, the prophets, Nabi, of the Lord, Ha-Baal, are 450, Abamiyah Chamesh, individuals, Ish. Melikim, rulers, 1 Kings 18:22. It's far worse today because there are none, and there hasn't been a prophet for 2,500 years. Over that vast expanse of time, not a single Israelite has been willing to reject religion and politics and listen to God to the extent Yahowah requires to speak through them as a prophet to his people. As a result, Jews speak for many things but never for God. And since there has never been a Gentile prophet, humanity has endured a long intermission, one consistent with Howsha's declaration. This dearth of acceptable candidates among Israelites is so bad that, the next time Yahowah speaks to his people through a prophet, he will be sending Eliah back as one of his two witnesses. It is telling that the religious have continually and universally worshipped their God as the Lord. This is curious indeed, because there are only three ways that the God of the Canaanites, Babylonians, Assyrians, Greeks, and Romans, Roman Catholics and Muslims, and even Israelites, became addressed in a manner so contrary to Yahowah's nature. There is the possibility that pagans 99 selected this title because they saw their sun God lording over them. If so, by continuing to use this title, a petitioner is implying that the pagan deities were real, and yet, a person might as well call their god Baal, Amen-Ra, Adonis, Jupiter, Dionysus, Apollo, or Zeus, even Jesus or Allah should they continue to acknowledge the Lord. They are all the same. Second, the false prophets and pagan priests, the self-serving and self-aggrandizing kings, queens, and dictators, leagued together and created gods in their image so that they could use them to justify lording over and controlling everyone else. My Lord and my Lord shared the same title because they were cut from the same cloth. Just as the Christian Jesus was shaped by Paul, an egomaniac, and Allah was Muhammad's alter ego, humankind has long anthropomorphized their gods and goddesses. In particular, those in charge, those lording over others, named them after themselves, bequeathing their gods with their preferred title. Third, Satan may have chosen this moniker for himself because it serves his interests. It replaces the Ha-Satan, the adversary title he is trying to dismiss, while positioning himself to be worshipped as if he were God. But if so, a prayer to the Lord is a plea to Satan. The title reflects the adversary's desire to be seen lording over Yahowah and controlling his creation. You call upon the name, Wakara Bashem, of your gods, Elohim Atom, and, any, will invite, calling upon the name, Kara Bashem, of Yahowah, Yahowah. Then, let it be, higher, that the God, Ha Elohim, who, Asher, answers, responding, Anna, with fire, he, is God, Ha Elohim. And all the people, Shol Ha replied, Anna, this statement and resolution, Ha Dabar, is 100 appropriately, Tob, stated, Amar. 1 Melachim 18:24. This is the referendum Yada Yahowah seeks to arbitrate. We are inviting you to call upon the name of Yahowah while the religious would have you submit to the Lord. Truth is on our side, as is every benefit. Too bad the people are not. Then they called upon the name, Wakara Bashem, of the Lord, Ha Baal, of the Master who seeks to own and possess, from the morning, Min Ha Boka, up until midday when the sun is at its highest and brightest during the day, at Hatzoharim, saying, La Amar, O Lord, Ha Baal, Master, answer us, Ananaknu, respond to us, reply to us and provide some evidence, lift up your voice and speak. But, there was no voice, in Cowl, and no one answered, in Anna. So, they vacillated and wavered, Pesach, crippled over their failure to confront Passover, being incapacitated by improperly engaging, bouncing back and forth, over, the altar, my speech, which they had made, Asher Asar. 1 Melachim 18:26. And it came to be, higher, at midday, when the sun was at its highest and brightest point, Hatzoharim, that, Eliach mocked and taunted them, pointing out the irony to them, Hathel Barhem, ridiculed them, scorning and deriding them, openly showing his contempt for them while playing with them and laughing at them, saying, Amar, call out, Kara, in a loud voice, Kal Gadol, for, Ky, God, Elohim, because he, QKY, is meditating, preoccupied with his devotional, pondering a frivolous conversation. Sayak, or perhaps, YKY, he is having a bowel movement and is relieving himself, Siglahu, or rather, YKY, he is out on a walk, Daraklahu. Maybe, Yuli, he is 101 sleeping, Yashanhu, and must be awakened, Yakats. 1 Melachim 18:27. Just as we can be certain that Jesus Christ was not God, that Paul was a false prophet, and that the New Testament is unreliable, we can be assured that the Christian religion is invalid. The same is true for rabbis and Judaism. Elia recognized that Baal, the Lord, was not God and that his prophets were frauds. So, rather than respect them, or even tolerate them in a politically correct and multicultural fashion, he mocked them. And he did so cleverly by pointing out the irony of this situation. At high noon, their God should have been at the peak of his powers, and yet, his devotees were getting nothing but a sunburn. Sarcasm, like satire and cynicism, is intellectual humor. It is used effectively to point out the absurdity in things through association. It is often denounced as unacceptable and is condemned today because people are insufficiently judgmental to interpret the humorous comparisons appropriately. But let's be clear, the lone person inspired by God on this day was sarcastic. He mocked and ridiculed the prophets and gods of the people's preferred religion. Therefore, in the great debate between religion and Yahowah, let it be known that those speaking on behalf of religion are opposed to God, and those who speak for him expose and condemn the religious. We do not and should not respect them. In reality, the religious seldom play nice. Since they are unable to refute criticism of their faith with evidence or reason, they dismiss critics by inferring that it is inappropriate and impolite, even ungodly, to criticize the underpinnings of their faith. They go so far as to claim that an individual attacking their religion is influenced by Satan, while the opposite is true. If you have a stomach for shrill voices, listen to Hasidic rabbis address conservative or reform Jews. Or you may want to watch a Muslim 102 respond to someone with the courage and compassion to speak honestly about Muhammad and his pet, Allah. Also relevant, Eliah was properly prepared to do this job. He not only knew Yahowah, he understood and despised religion so that he could accurately and effectively expose and condemn it. This is why he was so effective at embarrassing the Israelites who were worshipping the Lord. It is also why Yahowah is sending him back during the time of Jacob's troubles. Who better to mock the religious and confront the political, pointing out the irony of their beliefs, than the man who has proven he could do so? I also tend to suffer fools poorly. I will toy with those who contact me to irrationally defend their religion, often pointing out the asinine nature of their claims. And while this approach is often criticized as inappropriate, we know otherwise. we should all be more like Yah. Our God has a sense of humor, and so should we. As is the case today with rabbis and priests, the Lord's ministers were either unwilling or unable to accept the fact that their religion was disingenuous, and their gods were worthless. Rather than listen to Yahweh's kara, invitation, they continued to protest. It is reminiscent of the foolishness of Paul's pray without ceasing and indicative of the Haredi bobbing their heads toward a wall while chanting. When the religious flap their lips and wag their tongues, they are not listening to Yah but, instead, to themselves and those who concur with them. They continually called out, Wakara, with a great many loud voices, Barkal Gadal, and cut themselves with their blades Wagadod. They banded together and sliced themselves as part of their worship, Hitpale imperfect. They acted upon their own initiative and made a habit of cutting themselves with sharp objects, as was their way of resolving disputes. Kar Mishpat Hem, 103 consistent with their prescription and practice, using swords and lances, Bar Cherub wa Bar Ha-Romach, until blood gushed out. Ad Shafak Dam, upon them, Al-Hem. 1 Melechim 18:28. Rather than accept Yahweh's terms and cut themselves into the covenant, they cut themselves out of it, lacerating their bodies in the process. And they were not alone. Self-inflicted wounds have long been part of religion. Christians did it throughout the Middle Ages, and some continue to do so today. Shiite Muslims whip themselves during the celebration of Ashura Day, in honor of the Queen of Heaven and Mother of God. Even rabbinic Jews speak of affliction each year during Yom Kippur. It is hard to fathom why the faithful would want to spend an eternity with a God who enjoys watching his devotees hurt and demean themselves. Having debated countless religious apologists, I realize that no matter how many times you prove them wrong, they turn the page and cite another inane verse from their twisted scriptures. That is what occurred on this day. It came to be, Wahaya, as, Ka, the sun passed by its highest and brightest point, Abahat Soherim, they prophesied, Nabi, they claimed to speak on behalf of their God, predicting what would soon occur, until the time, Adlah, to lift up, Allah, the sacrifice, Ha-Minsha, the obligatory tribute in submission, but, Wah, there was no voice, Ein Kaul, no answer, Ein Anna, and, Wah, no one paying attention, Ein Cheb. Melechim, rulers, 1 Kings 18:29. That is the blight of religion. The misled voices of the many drown out the lone voice speaking on behalf of God. Nothing Yahweh or his prophets and witnesses reveal matters to those titillated by faith. Even when God is addressing them, they ignore him. 104 The religious will claim that their God answers prayer, but that is not true. The events they seek to alter play out unaffected by the petition. The only correlation between their requests and the resulting outcome is attributable to the placebo effect, one so common it must be addressed in clinical trials. Yah, Waliach, said, Amar, to all the people, La Shel Ha-Am, move toward me, drawing near, Nigash el-Eni. So, all of the people, Wa Shel Ha-Am, approached him, Nigash el-Hu. Then he repaired and restored, Rapha, the altar, Mizbeach, to Yahweh, which had been previously destroyed and lay in ruins, Ha-Haras. 1 Melechim 18:30. And, Wah, Yah, Waliach, took, Lakek, 12 stones, Shenaim is Eben, according to, Ka, the number of tribes, Misphah, of the children of Jacob, Beni Jacob, because it was unto them that, Asher el-Hu, the word, Dabar, of Yahweh, had come to exist, higher. He declared, Lama, Yisrael, individuals who contend against or endure with God, Yisrael, is your name, Haya Shemota. 1 Melechim 18:31. Then, Wah, with the stones Eth Ha-Eben, he rebuilt for the family, Banah, an altar, Mizbeach, in the name of, Bar-Shem, Yahweh. He engaged to fashion, Asar, a restoring channel, Tala, to approach the altar, Laha Mizbeach, suitable, Ka, to house, Baith, 2 measures, Sime, of seed, Zerah. 1 Melechim 18:32. When it came to be the time for the offering to rise, Wahaya Baal Minsha, the prophet, Ha-Nabi, Eliach, approached Nigash, and said, Wa Amar, Yahweh, God, Elohim, of Abraham, and Yitzchak, this day 105 Wahayam, let it be known, Yada, let everyone choose to acknowledge and accept, become aware of and understand, announcing, to Yisra'el, that you are Almighty God, Ky Otter Elohim, in Yisra'el, those who engage and endure with the Almighty, Var Yisrael, and that I am your associate and co-worker, Eni Ebed Otter. In accordance with your word, Wabar Dabar Otter, I have engaged and made all of these statements, Asar Eth Shel Ha Dabarym Ha Alei. 1 Melechim 18:36. You have chosen to reply to me, Ana Eni, Yahowah, Yahowah, because it is your will to answer me, Ani, so that these people, Waham, may come to know, Yada, may choose to accept, acknowledge, understand, and appreciate, that, indeed you, Ky Otter, Yahowah, Yahowah, are God Almighty, Ha Elohim, and that you, Wa Otter, can affect and change, Sabab, their motivations and thinking, Ethlabhem, back again in the end, Akaranith, returning it to what was originally intended. 1 Melachim 18:37. Then, Wah, the radiant light and transformative fire, Ha-Esh, of Yahowah, Yahowah, descended, moving from a higher position to a lower one, Naphal. It consumed, Wah-Kal, the offering which elevates, Ha-Olah, and also the wooden timbers, Wah-Eth Ha-Eshim, along with, Wah-Eth, the stones, Eben, and the dust, Wah-Eth Ha-Apha, evaporating, Lakak, the water, Eth Ha-Maim, which, Asher, was in the healing and restoring channel, Bah-Ha-Tala. 1 Melachim 18:38. When each person, Wah-Shurl Ha-Am, witnessed it, Ra, they fell upon their faces, Wah-Nafal al-Panahem. They said, Wah-Ma, Yahowah, Yahowah, He, is the Almighty God, Ha Elohim. Yahowah, Yahowah, He is God, Almighty, Hu Ha Elohim. 1 Melachim 18:39. 106 They did not know Yahowah any better at that moment than they had in the minutes before the fire devoured everything that had been arranged before them. They did not understand any of the symbols that you and I have considered. By falling down, they demonstrated that they were still clueless. Their proclamation was for another time, for 2033 CE, when the children of Yisrael will finally come to embrace the light, and actually mean it when they look up and call out, Yahowah. He is God, Almighty. The fact that their allegiance was fleeting is why Yahowah seldom conveys his presence through signs and wonders. Miracles do not promote understanding, and all too often cause those who experience them to bow down in fear. That is not the intent of a loving Father. Even though the Israelites were as dumb as stones on this day, symbolic of the Haredi, and although Eliah had agreed to represent them, this didn't mean Yahowah's prophet could be counted among the religious. He understood the consequence and fate of false prophets, of those who speak for the Lord. Therefore, as a lesson to all who would dare promote religion, especially Judaism, we read, So then, Wah, Eliah, Yahowah is God, said, Amar, to them, Lahem, seize, Taphas, of your own volition, having caught them in the act, arrest and restrain, the prophets, Ethnabi, of the Lord, Ha-Baal, of the one acting as master and owner with the intent of possessing and controlling, not letting a person among them escape or be spared, Yishal Malat Minhem. And they, after catching them in the act, took control of them, restraining them, Wa-Taphashem. They brought them down, Wa-Yaradhem, to Eliah, and to the Kishon, to lure and snare in serpentine fashion, river, Nakal. He killed them then 107 and there, Shakachem. Melachim, rulers, 1 Kings 18:40. For these and subsequent religious ministers, there would be no salvation or escape. Their souls were on a collision course with Sheol where they would spend eternity incarcerated with the others who would preach in the name of the Lord. Eliah did not try to rehabilitate them nor save them. He did not negotiate with them, respect them, compromise with them, or tolerate them. They, like every religious cleric before and after, sought to negate the value of Yahowah's name by referring to their God as the Lord. It is the unforgivable sin that serves as the basis of the third statement Yahowah etched in stone. For those listening closely, this is our second encounter with Nakal Kishon, the lure of the river. As previously mentioned, it flows through the heart of the Jezreel Valley. During Dabarym's day, Yahowah performed a miracle in this place, liberating his wayward children from oppression and abuse. Now they were abusing him. Since God is fair, those who align themselves with the Lord will remain associated with him. They are afforded an express ticket to Sheol which was established to incarcerate Ha-Satan. Considering the consequence of not restraining them, and of failing to prevent their lies from continuing to infect his people, eliminating them from their presence was the most compassionate and reasonable response. However, be careful because we are not counted among Yahowah's prophets. We do not live in Yisrael under the authority of the Torah. And so, we must limit our interactions with religious advocates to words, using Yahowah's testimony against them. 108 When Eliah returns on Pesach in 2030, and then during the following 3.5 years, his words will continue to torch the religious. One after another, they will all go down in flames. In this case, death was not the penalty. The prophets of the Lord would be sentenced to spend eternity locked up in the lightless realm of Sheol, from which there would be no escape. They were given what they wanted, an eternity with the Lord. We ought not to be bothered by the conclusion of this affair. It was not just a test between Yahowah and the Lord, it was a referendum on life and death. This same choice is before all of us, and the consequence and penalty remain unchanged. The Lord is deadly. Do not ever lose sight of this reality. This is not a game. All the while, Jezebel had a conniption over the death of the stalwarts of her religion. They had justified her claim to power. With no one to support her, she put a death warrant on Yah. And she was not alone in her hatred for Yahowah. When I shared my assessment of Yisra'el, previously noting that her newfound faith in God was fleeting, here is some justification for that conclusion. And a spiritual messenger, Malach of Yahowah, returned, Shu, a second time, Seni, and touched him, Nagabahu, saying, Ma, arise, Kum, stand up and accomplish the mission, being nourished, Akal, because, Ky, the path is important, and the journey is extensive for you, Derek Rab Minota. 1 Melachim 19-7. So he stood up, Kum, ate, and drank, Kal Shatha. Then he set out on the journey, Holok, based upon the fortification, Coach, of that meal, 109 Akila High, for 40, days, Yaumim, and 40 nights, Arba Lail, unto, Ad, Korib, the mountain, of God, Elohim. 1 Melachim 19-8. He came upon, Elbow, a cave, Mara, there, Shem, to spend the night, Lin. Then and there he became aware, Hine, that the word, Dabar, of Yahowah, had come to him, Elhu. She asked him, Lahu, why are you here in this place, Tapo, Eliach? 1 Melachim 19-9. He replied, Amar, I have been extremely zealous and devoted to the relationship, Kana, with, Yahowah, the God of the spiritual envoys, Elohim Zaba. By contrast, Ky, the children of Yisra'el, Beni Yisrael, have rejected and abandoned, Azab, your familial covenant relationship, Berith Otter. They have torn down and destroyed, Haras, your altars, Mizbe Chotter, murdered, Harag, your prophets, Nabi Atom, with the sword, Bar Cherub, and, I am left, Yathar Eni, by myself, La Bad Eni. And they are searching for me, because, to take, La Lakak, my soul, Eshnipesh Eni, my consciousness, my ability to observe and respond. Melachim, rulers, 1 Kings 19:10. In the order of things, Eliah would come after Shamuel, Daud, and Solomon, but before Howsha, Yashar, Shabakuk, Yirmiah, Daniel, Zechariah, and Malachi. So had he read Daud's 91st or 119th Mizmor, he would have been celebrating his arrival at Korib, the mountain and sword of God where the Torah was revealed. Even with the preponderance of his 110 people seeking to kill him, he would not have been concerned or felt alone. I'm just a witness, not a prophet, and yet, even after receiving thousands of death threats in the wake of Prophet of Doom, and then a decade of working alone on the initial volumes of Yada Yahowah, an introduction to God, and questioning Paul, I have never ducked for cover, hid for a moment, or felt isolated. Yahowah is great company, and he is fiercely protective of his children. But to be fair, as ill-prepared as I was when he invited me into his service, God had to bolster me with 7 spirits, so I was always in good company. Recognizing that I would be the first of my kind and the last in the line, Yahowah couldn't take any chances. Yom Kippurim still hangs in the balance. What follows serves as a fitting conclusion to our time with Eliah. On that day, in all of Yisrael, as will be the case when he returns, there were only 7,000 men, women, and children who had not bowed before Baal, the Lord. That is not to say that any of these people knew Yahowah, only that this was the full extent of those who were not paying homage to the Lord by being religious. Therefore, addressing his return, Yahowah's messenger announced, I will leave a remnant, sparing a few who will be left in the end, Washah, in Yisrael, Bar Yisrael. There are and will be 7,000, Sheba Elif, including all of those whose knees, Shurl Ha-Berek Asher, have not bowed down, showing reverence, Lokara, to the Lord, La Ha-Baal. This includes every mouth which, by profession, Wa Shurl Ha-Pei, has not submitted to him, Asher Lo Nashak Lahu. Melachim, rulers, 1 Kings 19:18. 111. This was the extent of the non-religious who were receptive to the truth. There was hope for them, just as there is the choice of a brighter future for Yahweh who are neither political nor religious today. Should there be 7,000 souls among the 7 billion people who survive to witness Eliah's return, then we will have yet another confirmation of the second of 3 statements Yahowah etched on the first of 2 tablets. He said that thousands would benefit from his mercy. And thousands among billions is 1 in a million. All the while, things went from bad to worse for King Achab and company. Then Ben-Hadad, the king of Aram, gathered his troops together along with 32 kings, horses and chariots with them, and they went up to besiege Shomaround and conduct war. 1 Melachim 20-1. He sent messengers to Achab, king of Yisrael, into the city, and they said to him, Thus says Ben-Hadad, 1 Melachim 20-2, Your silver and your gold are mine, the prettiest of your wives and children are mine. 1 Melachim 20-3. Then the king of Yisrael answered, and said, My lord, O king, according to your request, I am yours and all that I have. 1 Melachim 20-4. But the messengers returned and said, Thus says Ben-Hadad, stating, Although I have sent unto you saying, You will deliver to me your silver and gold, your wives and children, 1 Melachim 20-5, nonetheless I will send my servants to you tomorrow about this time, and they shall search your house and the houses of your servants. Then it will be that whatsoever is pleasing in your eyes, they will take away. 1 Melachim 20-6. For the sake of the women and children, not the king, some among the 7,000 convinced their capitulating 112 monarch to allow them to take a stand against the marauding horde and demonstrate Yahweh's support of his people. He acquiesced, they did, and Ben-Hadad ran away to fight another day. A few years later, however, once again deceived by his prophets, Achab pursued the Syrian king. Knowing that he would be targeted, he convinced the king of Yahudah, Jehoshaphat, to wear his royal robes into battle while the king of Yisrael donned a disguise. But as luck would have it, Achab's deception failed when a random arrow found a joint in his armor. He would bleed to death. Ahazah, his son, would follow in his father's footsteps. Of his 2-year reign, it was noted. And he did evil from Yahweh's perspective because he walked in the way of his father and in the way of his mother, also in the way of Jeroboam, who caused Yisrael to be religious. He served Baal, made pronouncements on his behalf and worshipped him. He provoked Yahweh, the God of Yisrael, to anger, consistent with everything his father had done. 1 Melachim 22:52-53. The degradation of Yisrael in Jezreel is the consequence of religion, of worshipping Satan as if he were God. Nothing is more irritating to Yahweh or more damning for humankind. Yisrael's fall was pervasive, with the king and queen, their sons and their prophets, their generals and subjects, all playing along. Religion had become a cancer and had metastasized throughout the chosen people, such that there was no hope and none left to save. Unfortunately, the treatment required to forestall religion's malevolent growth would be harsh and unrelenting. It would be nearly 3,000 years before this 113 invasive and crippling malignancy would be arrested in a remnant of God's people. For example, now, Moab, who's your father Moab, rebelled, seeking to expand by revolting, Pasha, against Yisrael, those who contend with God, Bar Yisrael, after, Achar, the plague of death and pandemic disease Moeth, of Achab, father of the brethren, Achab. 2 Melachim 1-1. Then, Achaziah, seizing and controlling Achaziah, fell to an inferior position, Naphal, behind the lattice which served as a trap, Bod Hasabaka, in his upper chamber, Bar Aliahu, which, Asher, was in Shomaround, pay attention, Samaria, Bar Shomaround. He became ill, afflicted and weakened by disease, Shula. So he dispatched, Shalak, messengers serving as envoys, Malak, and said to them, Elhem, go, Holak, consult with, inquiring information to learn from, Diroshbar, Baal-Zebub's, the Lord's controlling gift, Baal-Zebub, the god, Elohim, of Ekron, cut out and rooted up, Ekron. Find whether or not, I will live and survive, being restored, Chea, from this sickness and injurious affliction, Min Cholizeh. 2 Melachim 1-2. Just when we thought that Israel's leadership had fallen to the lowest point possible, another sorry soul stumbled further away from God and deeper into Sheol. Darkness had enveloped them. Baal-Zebub is an interesting name because Zabub is a fly in Hebrew. However, since no one names their God Lord of the Flies, we are compelled to consider the verbal root of Zabub, and there we find that Zebed means to give or to endow. Combining this with Baal, the Lord 114 and Master who owns and controls, we have either the Lord endows or gift of control. And that is a name a fellow like Achab would celebrate. This is because Zabul speaks of being exalted and living in a lofty abode. Once out of the latrine, Baal-Zebub becomes the exalted lord of palatial and an extravagant living. Regardless of the Lord's name, we ought not be fooled. Please make no mistake, Israel abandoned Yahweh by being religious. That is why God was and remains angry at his people and estranged from them. It is why Yahweh asked Howsha to marry a religious prostitute, and it explains why he addressed Jezreel in his divorce decree. And yet, Since God made a promise to reconcile his relationship with these reprobates, he would do what he could to constrain the growth of this sickness by extracting the most malignant cells. Yes, most would still die of the disease, but a remnant would survive, and perhaps, as many as 7,000 of them will disavow Judaism, the rabbis and their preferred political party, in time to listen to Yahowah and respond appropriately. Let it be known, however, that with such overt condemnations of religion presented and maintained within the books inspired by Yahowah, with the reference in Howsha pointing us toward what occurred within the Jezreel Valley, and to this review of what prompted the long intermission foretold in the opening declaration of Howsha, there is no excuse for a single Jew to have been religious. One has to be willfully ignorant of the prophets to provoke God in this manner. It is so obvious that Yahowah hates religion, the likes of the Haredi are deliberately taunting the Almighty. A messenger, Malach, of Yahowah, spoke, Dabar, to Eliach, the Tishbe, my recourse, Tishbe, arise and go up, Malah, to 115 meet, Lakara, the messengers and envoys, Malachi, of the king of Samaria, Melech Shomaroun. Say to them, Dabar Elhem, is it because, Amen, there are no longer any gods, Baali ein Elohim, within Yisra'el, Bar Yisrael, that you are going, Atam Holok, to seek after and petition, resorting to consulting with, La Dirosh Bar, Baal Zebub, the exalted Lord's gift of control, Baal Zebub, the god, Elohim, of Ekron, to be cut out and rooted up, Ekron. 2 Melechim 1-3, Gulp. There are no good answers. And so, they didn't attempt to give one. And, therefore, it stands to reason that, while Laken, this is what, Yahowah, says, Amar, the bed is a death bier, Mita, the place from which you had ascended, Asher Allah Sham, but you shall not come down, Lo Yared, from it, Minhai, because you will absolutely die, Ky Moth. 2 Melechim 1-4, by saying that the king had ascended from this bed, the prophet was demeaning him. He had done nothing to earn the position of monarch. The only reason Achab was considered a king was the source of the sperm that conceived him. He was similarly denounced when labeled the king of Samaria, because he claimed all of Yisrael. When his envoys told him that he was going to die, he wanted to kill the messenger. So, he repeatedly dispatched battalions of 50 soldiers to assassinate Eliah, only to have each torched by the Almighty. Then after all of the fireworks, the king died. Exceedingly disgusted with the lot of them, Yahowah positioned Yahweh to rid his people of this problem. With Yahowah's blessing, Yahweh journeyed to Jezreel to dispatch Jezebel. Upon his arrival, Satan's little helper and mass murderer, was thrown out a window, and devoured by 116 dogs. Ahab's sons were next, their heads delivered in baskets before Yahweh and dumped before the gates to the city, for the crime of promoting religion among God's people. And so Yahweh killed all who remained of the house of Achab in Jezreel, along with all of his highest-ranking men and his acquaintances, especially his priests, until he left him without a survivor. 2 Melechim 10:11. And therein is the story of Jezreel. It speaks volumes about what Yisrael had become and is as germane to our time as it was to theirs. It is obvious to the observant, as it is the predominant theme presented throughout the Torah and prophets, God's problem with Yisrael has always been their preference for their religion over the relationship he had offered. But here, in the Jezreel Valley, this realization is inescapable. Yisrael had become as perverted and corrupt as the Goyim surrounding them, all as a result of their disgusting religion. The only thing that distinguished these degenerates from other nations is that their epic failures were duly recorded for us to consider. And because Yahowah has not given up on them, while they have gone down in flames, they have risen from their own ashes. It is a luxury that other nations have not been afforded because they succumbed to their epic failures. While the history of Yisrael and Yahweh is tragic, stained by religion, the Goyim who abused them have been no better. And this is also clear, there can be no question that Yisrael brought the divorce and long intermission upon themselves, but do not write them off. 117 Yahowah has not replaced them. A day is coming when he will reconcile their tumultuous relationship. Only one question remains, will you be among those who eschew Judaism in time to become a Yahud, beloved of Yah once again? 2 decades ago, this is where my enduring and passionate relationship with the Word of God began. Translating Howsha has led us all on an epic journey, into the very presence of God. We have witnessed creation, eavesdropped in the garden, boarded the ark, and walked alongside Abraham. We were eyewitnesses to the formation of the covenant and exodus from Miriam. And through it all, we have explored the Torah and contemplated the revelations of the prophets. I can only hope that your experience has been as enriching as my own and that we will meet one day to discuss all that we have learned along the way.